Hi guys, I hope you all had a good week last week. Today's video is going over what we did in class on November 30th. Today we're going to be looking at indirect questions and talking about the language that we use with politeness. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. All right, so again, today is the 30th, so we're going to be talking today about using indirect questions to make sure our language is as polite as we can make it. So let's take a look at politeness in general. When we think of the word polite, is this a positive or a negative word? Yeah, it's positive. This is a positive word. This is a good thing. This is something we want to be using in our speech. So we can think of it as courtesy. If I could spell it correctly, we could think of it as courtesy, being courteous to other people, being kind. We usually use this with people either that we don't know very well or people that are maybe in authority above us, so like your boss or your teacher or your child's teacher. So people that you don't know well or that are a little bit above you at work or something like that. So as you're thinking about being polite, what is some language? What language do you usually use when you're being polite? What are some words you use? Okay, good. So things like thank you, please, excuse me. These are all different words that we can use when we're being polite. So those are probably some of the first words that you use. So if you need something, saying please makes it more polite, just moves it up on that politeness scale. So let's take a look at this sentence. Give me the book. So when you want something from someone, a lot of times we have to make that more polite. So how could you make this more polite? You could say, please give me the book. So adding one of these politeness words onto it makes it more polite. You can even add two words. You could say, excuse me, please give me the book. Any other ways that we could do this? Okay. You can even use, and I'm sure I've heard all of you say this before, things like, could you please, and let me spell could correctly. Could you please give me the book? So this could you, here you could say could or can or would. We call these modals, and so you can use these as you're making requests more polite. We've talked about this in class before. So when we talk about requests, when we talk about asking someone to give you something, we're pretty familiar with this. I have heard all of you say these things. I know you know how to be polite with them. So I want us to look today at questions. So I think we are good with requests, and now I just want to look at questions. So here we have this question. Where are we going? Where are we going? How could you make this more polite? Right? One of the first things you may have thought of is adding one of these politeness words. Excuse me, where are we going? Perfect. Very common, perfectly okay thing to say. That excuse me makes it more polite. Now, something I heard both classes, someone in both classes said this. Could you tell me where we are going? Could you tell me? So similar to up here, where we use these words to make requests more polite, we can also use phrases like this to make our questions more polite. Could you tell me where we are going? Okay. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about these types of questions. So instead of using these direct questions, we're going to be looking at indirect questions, or sometimes you'll hear them called embedded questions. So if you have your student book, open it up to page 34, page 34 in your student book. All right, let's take a look. If you have the older book, that's totally fine. I have all the information in the PowerPoint. So on page 34 in your book, there should be a box above the words. If you have the older book, you do not have this, but don't worry, it is all on the screen. So let's take a look at these instructions and take a look at how we make indirect questions. Again, sometimes you'll hear them called embedded questions. So let's take a look at this. Let's just read the first line together. An indirect question is a question inside a statement or another question. So when we looked at this example, where are we going? When we made it more polite, we put this question inside of a larger question. So it's not just by itself anymore. Now it's inside of a longer question, or it can be a statement or just a sentence. So we use these when they go inside a statement or question. Indirect WH questions begin with a question word, who, what, when, and use subject, verb, word order. Why she is so strict. So this piece has two parts to it. Let's look at the first part. Indirect WH questions begin with a question word. They begin with a question word. So here we're talking about WH question words. So who, what, when. What are some other question words that you know? Where, why, how. These are all question words. So that question word is going to stay the same. We're going to keep that question word in our indirect questions. The second piece of this is that they use subject, verb, word order. Subject, verb, word order. So this is just talking about the order that we use the words. So let's look at this first example here. First example, the direct question, why is she so strict? So our WH question word here is why. That is staying the same. But in our direct question, the order is verb, subject. Why is she so strict? Why, subject, or why, verb, subject. In our indirect question, we have to switch those. So in our indirect question, it goes, I wonder why, that why stays the same. She is so strict. So that subject and verb switched. So now the order is, I wonder why, subject, verb. So in our direct questions, some of them start off being verb subject. And when we move into indirect questions, it has to be subject verb. Now, it has to be part of this full sentence. We can't just say why she is so strict. That is not proper grammar. So you have to use the form of an indirect question. I wonder why she is so strict. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Now let's look at the last part of this explanation. We do not use the auxiliary do, does, or did with indirect questions. So there are two types of direct questions we're going to be looking at. This first one, where there is no auxiliary and we just have to switch the subject verb. And the second one, where there is an auxiliary. Sometimes we say auxiliary verb, or we also use the term helping verb. And in questions like this, in these WH questions, that helping verb is always going to be do. It'll either be do, does, or did. So if we look at this example, where did you go? Where is our question word. Did is our helping verb. You is our subject. And go is our verb. So when we make this an indirect question, we use the sentence structure, can you tell me? Where stays the same. We get rid of our helping verb, no more helping verb. You stays the same. And then go becomes went. Why do you think go became went? Good. So went is the past of go. So in our original sentence, did showed us it was the past. But when we get rid of did, that past moves to the verb. So now the verb is going to be the past. So go becomes went. Good. Now, on page 34, you have this chart. So let's just read through this chart really quick and take a look at some examples. So I'm just going to read through this. Read along with me. Why is she so strict? Becomes, I wonder why she is so strict. How is everything at home? Becomes, I'd like to know how everything is at home. Now, both of these are examples of direct questions that do not have a helping verb. And we are just focusing on changing the subject and verb so that they are in subject-verb order. Why is she becomes why she is. How is everything becomes how everything is. Then if we look further, we're going to have some helping verbs or auxiliary verbs. Where did you go? Becomes, can you tell me where you went? So where stays the same. He got rid of did, you, and in that past, go becomes went. When did they leave? Do you know when they left? So when, get rid of did, they, leave in the past is left. What did they do? Becomes, I don't know what they did. So what stays the same. Get rid of did because it's a helping verb. They stays the same, and do in the past is did. Now here at the bottom, you're going to see these introductory clauses. I'd like to know, could you tell me, can you tell me, I don't know, I wonder, do you know? All of these introductory clauses are that question or statement that the question lives in. So the direct question lives inside one of these introductory clause sentences. You must have an introductory clause for these indirect questions. But the introductory clause doesn't really matter because it doesn't change the meaning. All of these sentences mean the same thing. Why is she so strict is the same meaning of I wonder why she is so strict. The indirect is just adding politeness to the direct question. So you can use any introductory clause you want. I wonder why she is so strict is the same as I'd like to know why she is so strict, or can you tell me why she is so strict? They all mean the same thing. Those introductory clauses are just adding a level of politeness. You can also add some of your politeness words. You could say, please, can you tell me where you went? Or, excuse me, can you tell me where you went? Those politeness words are also just added on to it. Now, I want you to do a little bit of practice. So, this is on the bottom of page 34. If you have your book, do it in the book. If you don't, you can just use it on here. You can pause the video right here. You're going to take this direct question and make it indirect. So pause the video, do this, and then we'll check it together. All right, hopefully you are finished. If you're not, pause the video and we'll give you a little bit more time. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 says, what class did she miss? Correct answer is, can you please tell me what class she missed? That what stays the same, or that what class stays the same. Get rid of did, she, then miss in the past is missed. Number 3, who did Lan go to the mall with? Becomes, I wonder who Lan went to the mall with. I wonder who Lan went to the mall with. Why did she break the rules? Becomes, I would like to know why she broke the rules. So why stays the same. Get rid of the helping verb. She, break in the past is broke. Number 5. When did she and her friend leave the school? Becomes, can you tell me when she and her friend left the school? Number 6. What did they tell you to do? What did they, excuse me, what did they do at the mall? Becomes, I want to know what they did at the mall. Number 7, when did they come home from the mall? Becomes, do you know when they came home from the mall? The last one, what was Lan's punishment? Becomes, could you please tell me what Lan's punishment was? All right. Let me resume that. Sorry, guys. All right, so what I want us to do is take a look at why these are the answers. So numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 all look like the first example. They are the second example, excuse me. They are all using that auxiliary verb. So did, did. So using that, those rules that we've looked at, when, get rid of did, they, and because they're all did, you're going to be using that past tense of every verb. And it's just the simple past of every verb. What they did, when they came, when she and her friend left. Number 8 is a little bit different because it looks like the first example. The first example doesn't have a helping verb. It's just concerned with that subject-verb order. So the original, the direct question is verb-subject, and you're making it subject-verb. So let's take a look at 8 really quick together. Let's take a look at this. So number 8 says, what was Lan's punishment? What is the subject? What is the subject of this sentence? Good. The subject is Lan's punishment. So this apostrophe S is talking about ownership, possession. So this punishment is Lan's. This cup is Elizabeth's. So this apostrophe S means that these two are one subject. Whose punishment? Lan's punishment. So all of this is our subject, and was is our verb. So when we make it indirect, could you please tell me what stays the same? The subject, Lan's punishment, verb, was. All right. For some reason I put that in the middle. All right, so I want you to do a little bit of homework. The first piece of homework that I want you to do, I want you to think about who you're going to be using indirect questions with. Who in your life are you being more formal or more polite with? Who is it? It could be your boss. It could be your teacher, your children's teacher, a doctor, or even someone you don't know very well. Maybe someone at the store, the workers at the store. The first part of your homework, I want you to choose two people in your life that you would use indirect questions with. So this could be a teacher and a doctor. It could be your children's teacher and the person at the store. I do not care. Choose two people in your life. Then for each person, I want you to write 2 indirect questions. For each person, write 2 indirect questions that you would ask them. So in the end, you're going to have 4 indirect questions, 1 for each person. So 2 for the doctor, 2 for the teacher. Your second piece of homework is going to be in the workbook. So in the workbook on page 32 in the workbook, the first part, you're just going to be telling me, is this sentence direct or indirect? So you'll just circle it. And then number 2 on page 32 is just like the work we just did. You'll take an indirect question and you'll be making it a direct question. If you want a little extra practice, you can also do page 33. So for homework, I want you to do page 32. But if you want some extra practice, you can also do page 33 in the workbook. All right, guys. As a reminder, we do not have class on Wednesday, but we will have class on Monday and Wednesday of next week. If you have any questions about indirect questions, just let me know. You can send me a message or send me an email. And other than that, I will see you all next week. All right, have a good day, guys.